Today I want to focus our experience in exploring space on what it takes to transcend taking things personally, and reminding us that so often taking things personally is about the confluence, the interaction of one or more of the three P's and one or more of the four C's. When those influences, those factors in our life come together, we can be triggered and we can have a reaction to a situation that also, although may not be skillful, our reaction is often disproportional to the actual event, and often greater than others who've been exposed to the same event. And that's because of that interaction between the three P's and the four C's. And the way we go forward with this is to bring skillfully into play some one or more of the five characteristics of our enoughness. And so that's what we will be focusing on this morning, is how we bring the five characteristics of our enoughness into play when we're feeling squeezed, when we're taking something personally. So recalling my example from the other day of how annoyed I get with Mayim Bialik on Jeopardy, even though we are huge fans of hers, when she says, "That is them, that is her, that is him," and can't get the nominative case in place and defaults to the objective case of the pronoun. And my disproportional reaction there is a combination of my social and cultural norms and personal conditioning when I was young, and for whatever reasons that's particularly annoying to me. So inviting you to take a moment and recall an example, a recent situation when you felt uncomfortable, when you were annoyed and upset, and you were in fact taking something personally. Even regardless of how unskillful and, quote, wrong the other person or event might have been, you had this disproportional reaction to it. So just taking a moment and recalling that so that you have it front and center as we work through each of the five characteristics of our enoughness for coping with it. So we begin with awareness. And awareness in this case allows us to recognize that that we're feeling a threat to our well-being in one way or another. That threat has been perceived. And this is condition one of the four conditions. This is how our brains have evolved, with the primitive brain looking for threats, sending signals to the amygdala, and causing us to react in these various physical ways. And in this case, we often get the strong physiological reactions. Maybe it's the elevating of the heart rate, shallow breathing, dilating of the pupils. Where I most often feel it is in some kind of tension in the neck and shoulders. I want to resist what's happening. Or maybe it's a little pressure in the chest, so I feel disconnected from the experience. I'm feeling constricted. This is not a place, not an experience that has to do with things being right or wrong. It's about our reaction to it. This is the taking of things personally. It's our reaction. It's not what was going on out there. And so we begin by recognizing that it's happening. We're aware of where it's showing up in the body. We're aware of the thoughts that are arising. And so now we can turn to self-regulating. We take those few deep breaths that invoke the parasympathetic nervous system, whose job it is to bring us back from this elevated state that we were triggered into. And as we do the deep breathing, that creates a fraction of space in which we can allow for what has already happened. We can allow for the fact, in my case, that Mayim has already made the statement. And I can allow for my own reaction to it. It's both of those things. It's not just what happened, it's my reaction to it. It's happened. I'm allowing it to be there. I'm accepting the reality that it's there. And with this greater sense of space that arises from the breathing, allowing, and accepting, then I can allow my natural resilience to come into play. Our bodies are designed to heal, to bounce back. Our whole being has the capacity to heal. And then I become the observer. What thoughts are present? What's the matter with her? Why does she talk like that? She has a PhD in neuroscience. Surely she wrote a dissertation and somebody edited her dissertation, gave her some feedback about this. Yada, 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 yada. Those are the kinds of thoughts that arise. The sensations may still be there, and I'm allowing them. And I can now begin investigating what's going on. And that shifts me over into the third characteristic of our enoughness, our capacity for learning. In this case, I can pay particular attention to the personal experiences I had when I was growing up at home and in school, that this is how grammar is taught. This is how it's done. This is the right way to do it. And realize that that sense of being taught the right way to do it, with strong emphasis on it, not only at home, with feedback from my parents, but also in school, with big red X. You said this, did this wrong. Don't raise your hand and tell me the incorrect answer. I'll humiliate you if you do that. We don't want that. So we begin to understand, we learn where taking it personally is coming from, where my disproportional reaction is arising from. And then I can say to myself, what wisdom is underneath my emotions? And I can begin to learn about my own fears and anxieties of not being seen as competent, of being seen as incompetent, of being seen as not worthy, of not being heard effectively. I'm in that open space now where I can take all this in. Be with it. And continuing to learn about my own thoughts and emotions that are present. So far we have combined awareness plus self-regulation plus learning that can lead to showing up skillfully in the future. And we can show up skillfully in our approaching. The fourth of our characteristics of enoughness. We can do this in a very personal way by inquiring, what does this thought or emotion that's present need right now? Nurturing, connecting, belonging, caring for. Inquiring, how do I stay connected to myself and others? Allowing myself to evolve, to move past this reactivity, to say yes to this need for not being viewed as incompetent, instead of getting caught up in it and controlled by it. Realizing that this is not a situation that calls for fixing. This is not a situation in which I say to myself, don't do that, don't have that reaction to her anymore. We know that doesn't go very far. It's about allowing for these conditions that are beyond my control, realizing they've already happened. Staying connected to myself and others. And then it's also about skillfully avoiding. If this is a big enough problem for me that I can't really effectively deal with it in the moment, maybe I stop watching Jeopardy as long as she's the host. Probably not, but that's an option. I can consider that. I have enough space now where I can consider a lot of possibilities with curiosity, generating many options. I can choose not to be overwhelmed by what's happening. So as I was watching last night, I could hear the words again, but I noticed that my reaction to it was downgraded from where it had been in the past. So I'll just stay in this place of allowing and probably eventually get to the place where I barely even hear the words. Another practice to avoid here is disdaining. This getting caught up in, what's the matter with her? Why can't she learn to speak correctly? That's disdaining. For one thing, it's way beyond my control. For another, it's meaningless. When we are in these places where we're able to bring some space into play, when we're feeling personally triggered, when we're taking something personally, we can use that space to self-regulate and learn, and then skillfully avoid an approach in the future. This is how we evolve. My own personal evolving phrase is toward being fully present, fully alive. And last week I invited you to come up with your own phrase, and you might recall that at the moment. Maybe words like fully present, or freedom or liberation don't suit you, or maybe they do. What phrase works for you that you're evolving toward, that you're allowing yourself to move toward? Over the next few moments, inviting you to reflect for a moment on which one or two of these 5 characteristics of our enoughness might be of benefit to you to cultivate these days. Awareness, self-regulation, learning, approaching, avoiding. Which one or two might be of particular benefit to you? Which one of these do you feel the most vulnerable on? And also thinking about the practices that might be most relevant. These days, my meditation practice is a very go-to resource. As I sit in this observer mode, noticing what's happening, noticing what thoughts, emotions, sensations are arising, and how I'm relating to them, and allowing whatever is to be. Not in fixing mode, in allowing mode, in observer mode. And checking in from time to time and noticing whether in that moment I'm feeling constricted, especially in my body, or has my thought process gotten tiny? Or am I feeling spacious? And no need to fix either one. We're observers. We're observers of our own experience. In that act of observing, in that experience of awareness, we're automatically creating space. Awareness and space go hand in hand. They're just 2 different ways of viewing the same experience.